Now, one of the reasons why we uh, developed our workshop, actually put together our training center in the Fort Lauderdale area, was to help bring all of this to small groups, right? To our providers. I've gone to a lot of workshops around the country over the years, as I'm sure you have. There's always missing elements, and in the cash based space, there's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement, right? They talk a lot about different ideas, right? You can dive into the peptides, nutrition. Nobody's connecting the dots, right? There's so many missing strands and paths uh, to connect all of these different programs. When we bring people together in our small groups, we have 20, 21 people in a small setting, high quality faculty, and we break down each of these components. We go through why is metabolic important. We go through the different modalities. We go through the modalities of recovery. We talk about how you implement from a clinical perspective and the secret sauce, the business perspective. That's always left out. No one wants to address both, right? It's either you go to a conference and they only talk about the business side, and you're like, well, what about the clinical? How does this get applied? Why does it get applied? How do the modalities work together, right? How does the metabolic impact your program? How does recovery impact your program? How does therapeutic impact? Why do you not want to run away from therapeutic? Right? And
Hmm.
then diving into the marketing and the business and making sure that you have high quality people. And that's one of the things that we strive
Sure.
to do at all of our workshops is really important.
That's something we talked about too. Like as a clinician, I think I have a unique perspective on that because there's nothing worse than going to a seminar, picking something up, getting a piece of equipment, getting a piece of tech, taking it back, and you're like, okay, how the hell do I use this now? Right? Because you don't have the back end support, right? You don't have the understanding on how to apply that and how to implement it. And so one thing that, I've always tried to fulfill that gap is to give people the tools and the understanding so that they can be comfortable, so that they have that understanding. And if they're comfortable with whatever that tech is or that equipment or that pathway or what they're using as specifics from a service standpoint, they'll be able to utilize it. And not only it's see one, do one, teach one, right? Not only will they be comfortable, they'll be able to apply that, and then they'll be able to tell others, and and then it just kind of grows exponentially. And so that's definitely a much needed, I think, service in our space. It just hasn't been utilized, right? And so people, I know what it's like to be a clinician. I know what it's like to be in practice. I know what it's like to see 200-300 patients a week, right? I don't have time to deal with that, right? It's like I need it to work. I just need it to work. Like when you give me something, I have to understand how this works, right? I totally understand it in that respect. And so one thing that we would try to do is we try to create these systems that we can, you have to do a discovery portion. Once you discover it, then you understand the scope. And then once you create that structure, then you apply it. And then you essentially, like you're doing with a patient, then we have to kind of reevaluate after, whether it's 30, 60, 90 days, we have to see where that practice is, right? And then you'll see the trends. And then as you trend upward, then eventually you take the training wheels off and you're like, okay, now it's time for you to leave the nest, right? So it's extremely effective, but what ends up happening is if you don't utilize that, you're just scratching the surface on accountability, but then overall success and health of these practices and these facilities.